Well, hello. It's a beautiful, overcast Saturday afternoon. Well, in my last couple of videos ago, I decided to start doing things that were more intimate as far as photography is concerned. Intimate meaning, rather than looking at the big picture, try and isolate some things. And what I did last was I started photographing a lot of the textures in trees and some of the interesting patterns that they have. Well, I've decided to do that again today. You know, there are some days you just have to do some of the things that suit you on a given day. Sometimes you don't want to look at the big picture. And a lot of the times, you just want some variety. And right now, I'm really enjoying photographing things close up and intimate, and showing details in things, and showing things from an entirely different perspective. So I'm going to try and do that today and see what I can come up with. And hopefully I can come up with some pretty interesting images. Okay. I have my first composition all picked out and set up. As you can see, there's a tree here. This is actually a tree that I photographed, probably about a month ago, from the front and from the back. But today, since what I'm doing is I'm moving in and getting some closer, basically macro shots. I'm using a 28 to 70 millimeter lens, and I'm zoomed in at about almost 70 millimeters on the particular textures in the tree right here. Now, what I decided to do is try and get all of my images today from this one particular subject, these two trees here. And from what I've seen, there are quite a few areas that can be zoomed in on and photographed. You know, it just dawned on me while I was here that when you're dealing in the close-up or macro range, you're concentrating on one particular area in the scene. It exponentially increases the number of possibilities that you have. Sometimes it's not best to look at the big picture. My preference was to move in on something more intimate, photograph details, and see what I could get out of a particular image without including too much of the surrounding area. And obviously, close-up macro photography is one of those ways of doing that. Now, I'm not actually using a macro lens, as I said, but I'm using a 28 to 70 millimeter lens, and the effect is going to be very similar, a little cropping perhaps in post, but the main objective of this is to show the detail and to focus in on one particular area. All right, so let's see what happens here. Now, as you can see, right now I'm focused right here in the foreground because the foreground was somewhat blurry. So I'm going to take one shot right here for the foreground and get that exposure in. And my settings, as you can see, are f-stop 13, ISO 100, about 1/4 of a second. So I'm going to take the first exposure right now. Mirror lockup. Okay, there's the first shot. Now, I'm going to come up just a bit, and I'm going to focus in this area right here where you have this wavy pattern. And I'm going to zoom in at 100, about 100% or so. Okay. And manually focus this. I'm in a very awkward position right here, so please bear with me where I'm standing. Okay, now that looks good right there. Nice and sharp. And we'll take the second shot. All right, mirror lockup. Okay. Now let's zoom in and check that out again. Okay, that looks good. All right. Now that's one shot in the bag. And as always, I will probably take a couple more shots and see what I come up with. Okay, that's one shot in the bag. Now I'm going to move around to a couple of different other areas on this tree and see what I can come up with. And I'm pretty confident I can come up with a relatively good shot. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, I've got my next composition set up. Oh boy, as you can see, the sun is coming out. So what I've done is I've stayed on the shaded side of the tree, so I can maintain that nice soft look without any direct harsh sunlight. All right, let's take a look at the composition that I have set up. But the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take 3 shots. I'm zoomed all the way in at 70 millimeters again, so as I said before, depth of field is compromised. So I'm going to make my first exposure. This particular area right here is actually closest to the camera, and I've already pre-focused at this particular position right here. So the first shot will be there, and we've got an exposure of 1/4 of a second at f-stop 13. Mirror lock up again. All right, now the next area is going to be about right here. This is actually a little bit further away from the camera, and then the last area will be on the very end, which is a little bit further away from the camera then again. So we want to maintain the depth of field and the focus. So I'm going to move over to this area about right here, and I'm going to zoom in at 100% or thereabout, and manually focus this area. All right, that looks good. And I'll take the exposure. Same settings, 1/4 of a second, f-stop 13. Okay, now on the far end, this is a little bit further away. And as I said before, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm zoomed in and I'm very close to the subject. And of course, as I said before, at high magnifications or higher magnifications, your depth of field is considerably compromised. So I'm going to zoom in again and focus for this area. All right, and that's nice and sharp. All right, and take the third and final exposure for this particular image. All right, that's 2 in the bag. I'm pretty happy so far with the 2 photographs I've gotten so far. I won't know exactly what I have until I get back and I process them. But up to this point, I'm feeling pretty good about it. But what I'm going to do right now is try and find one more image. I'm looking at this area still, and I'm still thinking I can probably get one more shot out of it from some point on this tree, and get a shot that's relatively interesting. As I said before, this is still going to be abstract in nature, so there are a lot of possibilities for what I can do with it. All right, I have the next composition set up, and it looks like this will definitely be my my last real composition for the day, unless I find something on the way out. Well, this shot actually was taken just a matter of inches away from the very first shot that I took. That's the interesting thing about this type of photography. When you're concentrating on very small, isolated areas, just moving a foot away or a few inches away from where you took the previous image yields an entirely different image altogether. And this is no exception. This is a perfect example of that. Okay, you can see I have everything set up here. Now, what I'm going to do here, as I did with a couple of the others, I'm going to take several different images because I'm zoomed in so closely. All right, the first focusing point is going to be here, and I've already focused on that. And we've got a half a second at f-stop 13. All right, let's fire off the first one. Okay, now we'll come up. This area is right here is a little bit closer to the camera than this area was. So I'm going to come up here. And focus there at about 100%. These images, of course, will be focus blended later to form one seamless image. And okay, and there we have that. And we'll fire off this shot. All right, now I'm going to move up a little bit further. This area at the top is a bit distended, so it's closer than this particular point on the tree was. So I'm going to move up a bit and come over just a little bit to that particular point and focus there. That actually looks pretty good. A little fine-tuning. All right, and we'll fire off one more. All right. Now I'm going to take one more. Okay, the far end over here is probably about, from what my estimate, maybe about 2 inches back from the area that I just shot. So I'm going to come over and go up and focus right here in this area. There's a bit of a depression here, so I'm going to focus there. And as you can see, that's a bit softer right in this area. And bingo, that's nice and sharp right there. And I'll back off and fire off the next one. Okay, and I think that's pretty much it. The shots that I've taken up to this point should basically cover all of the areas where there was just a little bit of a distance in plane between one area on the tree and the other. And once all of these are blended together later on, focus blended rather, it should form a nice seamless image. All right, so far I'm happy with what I have. Okay, that's done. Well, I definitely think the images that I was able to get today, I think they definitely have some promise. I can't wait to get back and process them and see what the final result is going to be. One thing I can't stress enough is that there's always something to shoot. There are always possibilities. So we all find ourselves sometimes saying that, well, there's nothing to shoot. Well, that's not quite true. There always is. But pretty much all of the images that I took in this particular video were taken within a length of about 7 or 8 feet. And a couple of shots were actually taken maybe about 7 or 8 inches apart. And each image yielded an entirely different image altogether. Well, so I guess that's it for this particular video. And as always, if you've liked this video, please don't hesitate to like, comment, and please subscribe. All right, until next time.